at the I-5. Also had a fatal crash in the City of Industry, 60 westbound at Crossroads Parkway. Only the right lane open there, and that's a mess from Lemon Avenue. And they're trying to clear for crash now in Silver Lake on the 5 south under Fletcher Drive. Left lane taken away by the crash. The 5 extra heavy starting back at Colorado Street. They're trying to repair a pothole block in the right-hand lane on the 210 westbound at Baldwin Avenue. That's a tough drive from Buena Vista Street.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. If you're like many people, you may think custom blinds is a job for expensive professionals. Well, at Blindster, if you have a tape measure and a screwdriver, you can install our custom blinds and save big. Plus, we guarantee they'll fit. Blindster.com.
Is this the tackle? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Clippers lose by 1 last night to Oklahoma City, but the team has a much deeper concern. Paul George had to be carried to the locker room after injuring his right knee. George's knee buckled when he collided with OKC's Luke Dort while battling for a rebound. The Clippers hope to know more about PG's injury later today. UCLA's men's basketball team arrived in Las Vegas yesterday to prepare for the West Regional Finals in the NCAA tournament. UCLA plays Gonzaga Thursday night, 6:45 p.m. tip-off on CBS. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. This sports report was brought to you by Original Taco Pete.
It's Aaron from Original Taco Pete. Let us cater your March Madness munchies. Order with us at Original Taco Pete on Grubhub, Uber Eats, DoorDash, or stop into our Slauson and Crenshaw location. We'll feed you soon.
Hi, I'm civil rights attorney Areva Martin, host of Areva Martin in Real Time. Weekdays, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Be sure to tune in weekdays at 4:35 p.m. for your daily download on the federal bribery trial of LA City Council member Mark Ridley Thomas. The case is sure to have many twists and turns, and our program will be the show of record in the case of United States versus Mark Ridley Thomas. We have our own seasoned justice correspondent who will be checking in with us to keep you up to speed on the daily details of this high-profile legal case. Be sure to tune in to Areva Martin in Real Time weekdays at 4:35 p.m. for United States versus Mark Ridley Thomas, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Order in the court.
Try to keep it coming. Things ain't always smooth, but I'll be alright as long as I can find the groove. Yes, I will. Yeah. Somehow I know that I can make it. You seem to like my style. Don't you worry, I'm gonna be around a while.
Live from Leimert Park, USA, I'm Tavis Smiley. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. So glad to see you and me back in stride again. Our phone number, 1-800-920-1580. 1-800-920-1580. All of our socials can be found at KBLA 1580. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, everything at KBLA 1580. Let me also invite you right now to download our app at KBLA 1580. Download the app and take us with you anywhere in the world and listen to us in real time, but only by downloading our app right now at KBLA 1580. Should you miss us any day in real time, check out the podcast of this program by going to the app, the website, Anchor, Spotify, Apple, so many places to get the podcast of this program and listen at your leisure should you miss us any day in real time. But I am delighted to have you along live with us today for the next 3 hours. You can also watch the live stream of this program by tapping on the KBLA TV icon on our app or by going to our YouTube channel. And let me also invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. Another great show on tap for you today in our second hour. A conversation in hour 2 about what's called Sonic Scholarship. Sonic Scholarship, an innovative approach to history and hip-hop that infuses both disciplines to explore the ways in which black folk have influenced American history and the public sphere. Sonic scholar Dr. DeWeston Haywood joins us today in our second hour. In our third hour, within the past week, San Francisco's Board of Supervisors drafted a plan that would support a one-time payment of $5 million to each eligible black resident. $5 million per person. Too little? Too much? Enough to repair the breach, the damage that's been done? What is the best approach to true reconciliation, healing, and restoring justice? A conversation today in hour 3 about a damaged heritage and the best way to right past wrongs with J. Chester Johnson, who was asked to write the litany of offense and apology for a national day of repentance when the Episcopal Church formally apologized for its role in transatlantic slavery and related evils. But in this first hour today, 2 more conversations. On the B side of this hour, a March Women's History Month conversation with the first American woman to command a space mission, legendary NASA astronaut Eileen Collins. But we commence today's program with Princeton sociologist and Pulitzer Prize-winning best-selling author Matthew Desmond on why he believes the poverty rate should be 0 and how he believes we can actually get there. Professor Desmond, an honor, sir, to have you on this program.
Oh, it's my honor. It's an honor to be here.
Delighted to have you. Glad we got some time to unpack this, at least the next 30 minutes or so. Let me jump right in here. I was fascinated, having studied poverty and written a book about it myself alongside my friend Cornel West. I was fascinated by your title. I love it, by the way. Poverty by America, your brand new book that published literally just yesterday, which examines the debate on poverty, making a new and I think a bracing argument for why it persists in this country and how the rest of us benefit from it. We'll get to that in a moment, I promise. But this title, Poverty by America, not poverty in America, poverty by America. Love the title, sir. Unpack it for me.
Well, this is something that is on us, is on us as a country. It's not an accident. We are the richest democracy with the worst poverty. And it's something that I think we have to confront. And I think that we have dealt with and tolerated so much poverty in our country for far too long. Like if everyone below the poverty line today formed a country, that country would be bigger than Australia. We have far too much poverty in this land of dollars.
What do you make of the fact that we are, to your point, the richest nation in the history of the world? I love how you put it, the richest democracy with the worst poverty. But to the extent that we are the richest nation in the history of the world, why does poverty persist?
It persists because many of us benefit from it. We often consume cheap goods. We like high returns on our stock portfolio. And those cheap goods and those high returns often come at a human sacrifice. They require worker exploitation. We design a welfare state that gives most to families that have plenty already. The richest 20% of Americans get 40% more every year from the government than the poorest 20% of Americans. We got to address that. And then finally, we continue as a country to be segregationist. To embrace segregation and to deny fair housing law. And a lot of that is about folks profiting and hoarding opportunity too. So I think that the book tries to make a case that if you want to understand the causes of poverty, many of us who are privileged, who are educated, who are lucky, have to look inside of ourselves.
I want to ask in a moment what we would learn by looking inside ourselves, what we would learn by interrogating ourselves. I think it was Socrates who once said that the unexamined life is not worth living. So we examine our lives, we look inside, what do we see? We'll come to that. But let me come back to this title again, Poverty by America. When I see something that says by Matthew Desmond or by Tavis Smiley, it suggests that we have we've created something, written something, put something forward that was intentionally done. So when you say poverty by America, you see where I'm going here. Is it intentional or is it benign?
It is not benign. People profit from it. I ran across this line from the novelist Tommy Orange, and he writes, "It's like these kids are jumping out of the windows of burning buildings, falling to their deaths, and we think that the problem is that they're jumping." And when I read that, I was like, my God, that's how we talk about poverty in America. We've focused so much attention on the poor themselves. We should be focusing on the fire. Who lit it? who's profiting from it.
It's a powerful, powerful piece. It seems to me, you'll take my point, and I'll push back just a little bit. We've referenced a few times now in this conversation when we talk about poverty. To my mind, we really don't talk about poverty. We love talking about the middle class, but not poverty so much. Your take on that?
We have to. We have to talk about it. I was talking to my friend Michael Tubbs the other day. He started a great organization called End Poverty in California. I love the ambition of that, End Poverty in California. And he said, you can't fight a problem if you don't name it. And I feel that he's right. And a lot of our politicians, they talk about the middle class. They talk about inequality, economic opportunity, basically everything except the fact that there are millions and millions of families that can't afford basic necessities in this country. Now, for a lot of folks that are experiencing poverty, it's still very stigmatized, right? And a lot of folks that are fighting poverty on the ground, they're organizing around the labels of tenants, right, or families or workers, and they're not flying, a poverty pride flag. There's not something like that. And I think that is a challenge to the anti-poverty movement. But I do think we have to talk about poverty in and of itself, deprivation.
It seems to me you can't also talk about poverty without talking about income inequality and economic immobility. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about this powerful point he made about the fact that we are segregationists still in this country. I want to probe that notion of being Socratic, looking inward, and ask Professor Desmond what it is that he thinks that we ought to see or should see when we turn inward and look at why poverty persists and why and how so many of us benefit from it. Just getting started in this conversation with the author of Poverty by America, just released yesterday. In fact, Princeton sociologist, Pulitzer Prize winner Matthew Desmond, who you're listening to right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. Good thing we've got 3 hours. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
The Los Angeles Urban League and Parkside Economic Development Corporation are working to close the wealth gap between black and white households. BWARP, the Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Program's free virtual workshops will help your family acquire, gain, maintain, and pass down legacy wealth. Learn from the experts about making more with what you have, the Black history of money, joining the Smart Investors Club, preserving your assets in tough times, crypto, cash in or cash out, the wealthy mind and body. Register for this free series that could change your financial future at laul.org/BWAARP. Don't miss BWARP, the Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Program, every 2nd and 4th Thursday in February, March, and April at 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Register now at laul.org/BWAARP.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
Roll Charmin Ultra Strong when you drop in the beat. It cleans with way less effort on your seat. Yeah, roll it, drop it, yeah, roll it, yeah, drop it. Okay. Charmin flows extra strong from the road. Your butt hella clean while you're sitting on the bowl. Yeah, it's all you need for that bathroom groove. Get you in and out without nothing to prove.
Charmin Ultra Strong cleans better so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
It's getting hot in here, so hot.
KBLA Talk 1580 is apparently the talk of the town. From the LA Times to our talk radio competitors.
Hey, there was a story in the LA Times about Tavis Smiley. Now he is back with his own radio station, KBLA, black-owned and oriented towards the black audience. So, Mo, considering your knowledge of Tavis and his audience, what's your take on this?
Well, I think in a general industry sense, I think it's always good when there are more outlets, there are more talk radio, there's more voices and representation. At that point, I think talk radio had been too homogenous for too long.
Real quickly, is it going to succeed, yes or no?
I think it's going to succeed.
You think?
There's a new sheriff in town.
We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we don't black down.
Chase loves soccer.
I'm Chase Carrera, and I'm 12 years old.
And his dream is to turn pro. That's why Chase and his family make sure he's always having fun and squeezing out his best with Go-Go Squeeze.
Okay, buddy, let's break for a Go-Go Squeeze.
Go-Go Squeeze Fruit on the Go pouches are a nutritious snack made from 100% fruit with no sugar added.
That's my boy!
Because when you nurture your kids, you squeeze out the best in them. Squeeze out the best with Go-Go Squeeze. Not a low-calorie food. Products range from 11 to 13 grams of sugar and 60 to 70 calories per serving.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly?
What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Interrogating your assumptions and expanding your inventory of ideas. Let's get back to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's get back to Princeton professor, sociologist Matthew Desmond on KBLA Talk 1580. This notion you raised earlier, Professor Desmond, that we in this country continue to be segregationist, I get it, but unpack that for me a bit more, please.
In most residential land, on 75% of our land, it's illegal to build anything other than a single-family detached home. And that has deep roots in racism. You know, a lot of that comes directly from racial segregationist laws that just changed when the Supreme Court outlawed those laws to basically segregationist laws that still work in practice but don't have segregation in the law. So we concentrate affluence in certain communities, and that also means we concentrate poverty in others.
And that concentrated poverty tends to be still black and brown, mostly?
Yeah, this is a big difference between black poverty and white poverty, right? Like most white folks that are below the poverty line don't live in neighborhoods with such concentrated poverty. And that makes white poverty and black poverty very different and differently experienced. It means like, you know, poor white kids are struggling, but they're going to better schools often. And they're living in different kind of housing. And they aren't facing these levels of police violence, and they're not facing these high levels of incarceration. And so, you know, I think that it's impossible to write a book about poverty in the United States without also writing a book about racism in the United States.
Yeah. Americans are a prideful people. I think it's fair to say, depending on where you are in the world, Americans are an arrogant people. We are not, by any other definition, shrinking violets. We are not snowflakes. We beat our chest. We talk about USA, USA. We chant that all the time. We advance this notion of American exceptionalism. So again, we are not shrinking violets. And yet it seems to me that the extreme levels of poverty in this country ought to be an embarrassment to us, given, as you said, that we are the richest nation with the worst poverty. So I say all that to ask what it is about this issue of poverty that prohibits us, that keeps us from interrogating ourselves on the question.
I think we've lost our moral ambition around this question. I'd like us to rekindle that. You know, when they launched the war on poverty in 1964, it wasn't just talk. Like, they set a deadline, right? They're like, we're going to do this by 1976. We're going to end poverty in this land. And they didn't get there, but they cut poverty in half with the war on poverty and the Great Society. So there was a time where we beat our chest about this issue, right?
Yeah.
And we wanted to be poverty abolitionists as a nation. And I'd like to rekindle that moral urgency.
As you well know, the war on poverty, since you went there, I want to follow you. LBJ's war on poverty has been I want to keep this. This is a family show, but they've beaten the crap out of it over the years. There've been books and there've been documentaries, and all the conservative think tanks have taken this on. You know where I'm going with this, obviously. That war on poverty has not fared well historically. You're correct about the data, obviously, but why is it that it has become so politically beaten down over the years? Looking back, that is to say, on what LBJ attempted to do.
I honestly don't know. You know, I think that we have this scarcity mindset in this country, right? Where, you know, we have this repeated line, well, how could we afford to do more? How could we afford to do it? And I've come to see that question as completely dishonest and sinful. You know, there was a study published recently that showed that if the top 1% of us just paid the taxes they owed, not paid more taxes, just stopped evading, that we could raise $175 billion more every year. That's almost enough to lift everyone out of poverty. Like, with that money, you could reestablish the child tax credit that we had in COVID, which cut child poverty almost in half. You could more than double our investment in affordable housing. I mean, we do not lack resources. We lack something else.
I love that the word you chose, sinful. Why is that question, to your mind, so sinful?
Because the answer is staring us right in the face, right? I mean, we could clearly do more to stabilize people's housing, shrink the black-white wealth gap, make sure children have equal opportunity, ease suffering for so many Americans facing it today if the richest among us took less from the government. And a lot of times when we talk about this, we talk about like redistribution. But I'm very leery of that word. I feel that what I'm asking for is a rebalancing of a safety net. You know, I'm talking, and let me talk just real specifically about like what am I talking about. So like in last year, we spent, as a nation, over $190 billion on homeowner tax subsidies, things like the mortgage interest deduction. Most of that money goes to families with six-figure incomes. Most families in America who are white own their home. But most Black and Latinx families don't because of our systematic dispossession of people of color for property and from the land. At the same time, that year, we only spent about $50 billion on direct housing assistance to the needy. You know, everything we do, like public housing, Section 8, all that. So it's this completely imbalanced welfare state when it comes to housing subsidies. We give most to people that need it the least. So I'm talking about bringing us more into balance.
Yeah. I mean, language does matter. Words matter, so I take your point. Earlier in this conversation, you suggested that you can't talk about or write about poverty as you do in this book just out yesterday called Poverty by America. Poverty by America. That's the title of the book by Matthew Desmond, Princeton professor who we're talking to right now. You said earlier that you can't talk about or write about poverty without writing or talking about racism. Let me come back to that because I've said many times, and I believe this, in my humble opinion, racism is perhaps the most intractable issue in this country. So if racism is one of, if not the most intractable issues in the country, and we don't want to do justice by it, we don't want to have a real conversation about it, how do you ever think then we get to the issue of poverty?
It's a really great question. One of the things that gives me hope is looking at the 60s, right? I mean, you look at the 60s, Congress was polarized, right? You got the Southern Dixiecrats aligning with the Republicans to block civil rights reform. You've got most of the country being against the war on poverty and being against the civil rights movement, right? And in that cauldron, right, in that situation, movements just pushed. The civil rights movement pushed. The labor movement pushed. And they forced lawmakers' hands, you know, and that's where we got our modern safety net, and that's where we got major pieces of civil rights legislation. So for me, the hope is found in the movements then and today, you know, and when I spend time with folks that are on the front lines fighting poverty, it's just a lot of fun. You know, they're not naive, but they have wins. They're having fun. They're joyous. It's a warm-hearted place to be. And so I guess I have hope in the power that we can bring by binding ourselves together and demanding a better nation.
In this country, when persons achieve a status of means, they brag about that. They promote that. You can tell by the size house they live in, by the kind of car they drive, by the kind of yacht they purchase. On and on it goes. We love to brag about our resources in this country. And I'm not naive in saying this, and it's not even a sophomoric question. I'm probing it for a particular reason. So we brag about being rich, but we boast about being rich. But to your point earlier, nobody is putting on their front lawn or wherever they may reside. Nobody's waving a poverty pride flag. What do you make about that in terms of those who are rich, and what do you make of that in terms of the rest of us, many who happen to be in poverty, that they're not promoting it? In fact, many people are embarrassed by it. Yeah.
You know, my family, we grew up tight, you know, and our gas got shut off often and foreclosure. And, you know, when my house got foreclosed, I felt ashamed, you know, embarrassed. And a lot of us feel that way when we're hitting these things. And I think part of my job as a sociologist is to take those feelings and say, wait a minute, you know, this happened to millions and millions of people around the country. You're not alone. And this isn't all on you, you know? And this is something that we collectively should take advantage of, or not take advantage of, take responsibility for, sorry.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, the book really tries to make this argument, too, that, like, look, I feel that sometimes these, like, everyone wins arguments ring a little false to me, you know? But it's also true that all this poverty diminishes all of us. You know, it brings us all down. And it results in a kind of an affluence in America that often is a stingy, afraid, icky, you know, kind of affluence. And so the book does make an argument where, like, the end of poverty will be life-altering for all these kids and parents and workers that are suffering from scarcity today, but it also will result in a freer, happier nation for all of us.
Yeah. I could have started our conversation here 30 minutes ago, but what would you say the primary difference is in reading a text about poverty, like yours, Poverty by America from Matthew Desmond? What would you say the primary difference is between reading a book about poverty authored by a sociologist versus authored by an economist? I've talked to many economists over the years. Joseph Stiglitz comes to mind. So many brilliant minds in the world of economics who have written about this issue. But what's the primary difference between an economist writing a book about poverty and a sociologist like Matthew Desmond writing about poverty?
I think sociology has an intellectual tradition, and one I certainly ascribe to, where we talk about power. We talk about power. So when you talk about what's happening in the labor market, there are important things like global trade to take into account. But my focus is on like what's happened to the unions, right? Okay, we had a time where unions had a lot of power. There's about 1 in 3 workers belong to a union. That was the most economically equitable period in our country. As unions lost power, corporations gained it, wages stagnated, and our jobs got a lot worse. And so I think a sociological take would focus on that power, that union decline, why they declined, how they declined. And I think an economist take would focus on other important things, but things that are not directly about this kind of power confrontation.
Yep. On Monday of this week, we had the president of UTLA, United Teachers Los Angeles, Cecily Mayart Cruz, as a guest on this program the day before the teacher strike took off. As you well know, the country knows, the second largest school district in the country, LAUSD, is now in its second day of a strike by its teachers and by SEIU 99, the local union that represents many of the support staff that work in the school system. Big article in the LA Times yesterday about the fact that these workers only make $25,000. That argument was made by Cecily Mayart Cruz on Monday. So I'm raising that because in the 2 minutes I have left, when you see teachers and others go out on strike in solidarity with low-wage workers, $25,000 a year for these everyday people cleaning schools and working in cafeterias, etc., and the response ends up being, what about my kids? What do I do for 3 days about my children, rather than focusing on the issues that they are raising? How do you process that?
Yeah, I mean, no one likes to strike, right? The teachers don't want to strike. The parents don't want the kids to strike. But look, the teachers haven't had a raise in like a generation. I've got public school teacher friends, right? They have to often buy their own materials, right? They often are relying on things like food stamps, our teachers. And so I think that, this is what it's come to. And I think that we have to find ways to support worker solidarity and worker power, even when it comes to things like this. I mean, one of the reasons that workers had all these gains in the 70s is because, frankly, they raised a lot of hell.
Yeah.
There was a lot of direct action. It works.
Yeah. I got 45 seconds left here. I want to close with this. You said earlier, rather boldly, which I love, that we have lost our moral ambition when it comes to poverty. We've lost our moral ambition. 45 seconds. Can we find it again?
I think we can. I think that the country is ready for a different kind of conversation. I think there are a lot of people that want to become poverty abolitionists. They do not want to reduce poverty. They want to abolish it. They see it as an abomination. And I think that, there is a movement building, and I think we can join that movement. So if you all want to, know where to plug in, you can go to a website called endpovertyusa.org and connect with anti-poverty organizations in your state or around the country.
That's endpovertyusa.org. The website, once again, in the book by Princeton sociologist and Pulitzer Prize-winning author Matthew Desmond, out now, just dropped yesterday. It's called Poverty by America. Poverty by America, a powerful text. Professor Desmond, good to have you on. Thank you for your work and witness, sir. I appreciate you.
You too. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. More of Tavis Smiley after news, traffic, and sports. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
Be sure to like and follow Tavis Smiley at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues when we come forward.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. In Memphis, Tennessee, a registered sex offender is being accused of murder. Cops booked African-American D'Angelo Bridges in the Shelby County Jail earlier this week on charges of first-degree murder, abuse of a corpse, theft, and tampering with evidence. The 36-year-old is believed to have taken an Uber to 19-year-old Talia Hilliard's apartment before killing her and trying to clean up her body with soap. Florida lawmakers are advancing a bill that would expand the law critics call Don't Say Gay. It restricts teaching about sexual orientation or gender identity in kindergarten through third grade. On Tuesday, a Senate committee in the Republican-controlled legislature conducted a hearing on a bill that would extend those restrictions through the 8th grade. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Still got the signal in downtown LA, 110 southbound at Olympic Boulevard. Only the right-hand lane is open because of a fatal crash and traffic stops at the I-5. Also had a fatal crash in the City of Industry, 60 westbound at Crossroads Parkway. Only the right lane open there, and that's a mess from Lemon Avenue. And they're trying to clear up a crash now in Silver Lake on the 5 south under Fletcher Drive. Left lane taken away by the crash. The 5 extra heavy starting back at Colorado Street. They're trying to repair a pothole block in the right-hand lane on the 210 westbound at Baldwin Avenue. That's a tough drive from Buena Vista Street.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. If you're like many people, you may think custom blinds is a job for expensive professionals. Well, at Blindster, if you have a tape measure and a screwdriver, you can install our custom blinds and save big. Plus, we guarantee they'll fit. Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Clippers lose by 1 last night to Oklahoma City, but the team has a much deeper concern. Paul George had to be carried to the locker room after injuring his right knee. George's knee buckled when he collided with OKC's Luke Dort while battling for a rebound. The Clippers hope to know more about PG's injury later today. UCLA's men's basketball team arrived in Las Vegas yesterday to prepare for the West Regional Finals in the NCAA tournament. UCLA plays Gonzaga Thursday night, 6:45 p.m. tip-off on CBS. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. This sports report was brought to you by Original Taco Pete.
It's Aaron from Original Taco Pete. Let us cater your March Madness munchies. Order with us at Original Taco Pete on Grubhub, Uber Eats, DoorDash, or stop into our Slauson and Crenshaw location. We'll feed you soon.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, Maisha Cairo here, KBLA, live at Chase Bank on Crenshaw and Vernon for the In This Together tour with female business owners, a day of empowerment, community panels, and best of all, tips on building business from marketing to capital. I was able to speak with one of the panelists, the owner of Kids Love. Take a listen.
So Kids Love, KIDSLUV, is a first-to-market zero-sugar, vitamin-enhanced functional beverage for kids.
So the zero sugar is really important because if not, the sugar gets on the teeth, it can cause cavities. So as a mom, I love this vitamins and hydration in one. Tell us what's happening here with Chase Bank today.
So I would say, I think what Chase is trying to do is create a community actually for entrepreneurs, a place where people can go. They have the space to do it. It's a beautiful space. And to be able to have these conversations. There are so many benefits to being a women-owned and certified business, from a standpoint of getting into stores, not paying the slotting fees of what it takes to be in stores. So I think Chase is trying to bring awareness to a lot of the things that people just don't know about, that not only the bank can help, but outside of the bank, their relationships can help create.
That's beautiful. And I know, this is how we build equity in communities of color, is kind of spreading that information and that knowledge. So thank you for being here today and doing your part and letting these women know that it is possible. For KBLA 1580, I'm Maisha Cairo in the community with Chase.
Need legal help? Attorney Jovan Blacknell is an aggressive trial attorney specializing in criminal defense and civil litigation. Look no further than the law office of Jovan Blacknell. From personal injury to criminal defense, Jovan Blacknell has the knowledge to protect your rights. The law office of Jovan Blacknell understands the stress and anxiety that come with legal issues. That's why the law office of Jovan Blacknell supports the right to a fair trial. For Los Angeles Council member Mark Ridley Thomas, are you facing a legal battle? Log on to fightforjustice.com. Don't go through it alone. Let the law office of Jovan Blacknell fight for your rights. Log on to fightforjustice.com. Let the law office of Jovan Blacknell take the worry and stress out of your case. Call 310-469-9117 today for a free consultation. That's 310-469-9117 or log on to fightforjustice.com. Law office of Jovan Blacknell, where experience and dedication make the difference.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
You got a big mouth. Hello, Joe, you're up. Welcome.
We're unapologetically progressive, and we don't black down.
Quiet and serenity. And that's where some of my friends have gone. Friends who have traveled with me through my wonderful experience in ours. A journey I'll never forget. When I think of home, I think of a place where there's love overflowing. I wish I was home, I wish I was back there with the things I've been knowing. When night makes the tall grass bend into leaves, suddenly the raindrops that fall, they have a meaning, sprinkling the sea makes it all clean.
I'm Tavis Smiley. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. Our phone number, 1-800-920-1580. 1-800-920-1580. It's a good excuse for all 3 hours today to play the music of Stephanie Mills, because today is the natal day of Stephanie Mills. Today is Stephanie's birthday. She was in the studio with us not long ago. We celebrate today the birthday of the iconic Stephanie Mills. And so all 3 hours today we'll be playing some of the best of Stephanie Mills as we move through this 3-hour program. Speaking of brilliant women, I am honored in this hour right now to welcome to this program legendary NASA astronaut Eileen Collins, former flight instructor, test pilot, the first woman to pilot the space shuttle, and the first to command a space shuttle mission. She joins us right now for a career conversation as we continue to observe trailblazing women during Women's History Month this March. Miss Collins, good to have you on. How are you today?
I'm great. Hi, Tavis. Thank you for your interest in spaceflight.
No, I have been interested for quite some time. As a matter of fact, last week we celebrated the 90th birthday of Quincy Jones, the great, speaking of great artists. So last week was Q's 90th birthday, and at one point, many years ago in my career, the space shuttle astronauts, as you well know, wake up every morning to a particular song, oftentimes. And on this particular morning, the space shuttle crew woke up to Fly Me to the Moon, the song from Frank Sinatra, produced by Quincy Jones. So Quincy came into my studio, and NASA connected my studio to the space shuttle. And Quincy and I were on the line when the astronauts woke up listening to Fly Me to the Moon. And when I tell you that experience gave me goosebumps, being connected literally by NASA from this studio in L.A. to the space shuttle in outer space as the astronauts woke up, was quite the thing. So I've long had an interest in space, but that was just a major moment for me.
Well, I can tell you that if you had goosebumps, the astronauts in space had goosebumps also. It's a surprise.
Yeah.
They don't know what song is coming up, and it's so great to wake up. Sometimes you're a little bit groggy, but it's a great way to wake up.
Yeah, it was cool because here they are waking up to the person who did the track. So they're literally on the phone talking to Quincy Jones and yours truly. And I love how NASA does it. As you know, I've been an astronaut. They checked in with me, every so often, and they were doing the time count, the countdown to when the conversation was going to begin. And I love that line. The last time they spoke to me, they said, Tavis Smiley, are you ready for the event? Are you ready for the event?
Yeah.
And and 2 seconds later, they connected us to the space shuttle. It was a moment. And Quincy was just in here, just like a kid in a candy store. We both were just giggling and just tickled to be connected to the space shuttle all those miles away as they listened to his composition. So it was quite the moment. What was it like for you being the first woman to pilot the space shuttle, the first to command a space shuttle mission?
Well, first of all, it was a real honor. And, as I look back, I kind of wondered, did I really do that? I was so involved. I loved the mission. I loved space exploration. And I love working with the people at NASA. And to have a mission, a goal. Okay, we're going to launch this space shuttle. We're going to do, the missions are varied. One time I took up a telescope. One time I went to the International Space Station. I've also been to the Russian space station, Mir, which has since been deorbited. But all of our missions were a little bit different. And for the year that you train, you are so focused on making that mission successful. It's almost like playing in pick a sport. Mm-hmm. You're really focused. You want to win the big game. But we do that for a year. And, I'll tell you, it's really the teamwork. We talk about it all the time, but, just working with a team with people from, all different backgrounds that are bringing their skills into the mission. So, I wrote a book because it was such a fantastic. The 4 missions were so fantastic. I wanted to record that to share the excitement with mostly with young people, but with everyone.
No, that book is called, I'm going to get to it, I promise. The book is called Through the Glass Ceiling to the Stars, the story of the first American woman to command a space mission. It is now out in paperback. Once again, it's called Through the Glass Ceiling to the Stars, the story of the first American woman to command a space mission, out now in paperback. What was it like? I mean, I know you've been asked this question 1,000 times, but not by me. The first question I want to ask now is, what's it like training for something so big, so massive, so huge for a year? I assume when you actually get there, that 1 year spent in training makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, well, what's it like? Well, it's all about focus. Focus.
Yeah.
And, I talk about how that, in really eliminating distractions and just working with the crew, saying, I want this mission to be successful. For example, if we lost the telescope, that we took up the Chandra X-ray Observatory one time, and we took, I want to say, crew exchange on the space station, we took up experiments. You want that to be successful. The other thing, being the first woman, inside NASA, there was no extra pressure because we all treat each other equally. Mm-hmm. But from outside of NASA, from the media, I got a lot of requests for interviews. And people wanted to know, what's the woman commander like? Mm-hmm. But the reality was, I had to turn down a lot of those interviews because I was training. Mm-hmm. And that's why I talk about focus and trying to, focus on the mission, not like out trying to promote myself.
Yeah.
And so, it was a little bit hard, and people were asking, well, why can't we talk to the commander? Well, she's training for the mission. So this is why now that my missions are over and I'm retired, I'm doing as much as I can, sharing what it's like to be in space and in the importance of space exploration.
Yeah. So to your point, I want to follow you then. What is it like breaking through the glass ceiling to the stars?
Well, I have to say the most important thing about it was getting the young women interested in doing something, outside of traditional areas, which, I'm 100% for traditional jobs. I think that, we need people doing those. But if you're a young person growing up and you say, I think I want to be an astronaut someday. Well, when I was a kid, I was 4th grade when I decided I wanted to be an astronaut. There were no women astronauts. And I remember thinking, I'm just going to be a lady astronaut. I'm going to do that when I grow up. But I think it's important for young people to see that there's role models that are like them. And that way they can start earlier. So, I hope young people in school think, oh, I want to be an astronaut. Study math, study science, look at what the astronauts are doing and try to, you don't have to do exactly what they're doing, but kind of get an idea of the skills that you need to apply to the program someday. So I think when you ask me what was it like being, the first woman commander, I think the opportunity to be a role model is it's a little bit scary, but it's important that, we just be present and that we don't have to be perfect, but we have to be present.
I love that. Every day I walk out the studio with some line I hold on to. That's the line for the day. You ain't got to be perfect, but you got to be present. I love that line. We are talking with Eileen Collins, the first American woman to command a space mission. When we come forward, I want to go back to the 4th grade and figure out how this all happened. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
Let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, hold my hand. In other words, baby, kiss me.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
Women are taking up space in the political sphere, but black women still have yet to really make their mark. This is Maisha Cairo with your K-Black Minute News, brought to you by Lendistry. Story courtesy of CaliforniaBlackMedia.org. On International Women's Day, the Public Policy Institute of California held the Women in California's Legislature Luncheon. Assemblymember Tina McKinner from Inglewood headed to Sacramento to sit on the panel. The woman-led panel discussed California's future and their essential roles in shaping governmental policies. This year's class of legislators held the largest number of women in state history, with 18 senators and 32 assembly members. And although black women are 8% of the 15% population of women in the country, they only fill 300 of the 7,000 state legislature seats across the U.S. McKenna made sure to emphasize the importance of this event and of women in color in politics, stating women bring diversity to the table due to the ways we take care of our families. I'm Maisha Cairo, and that's your K-Black Minute on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 celebrates Women's History Month, sponsored by Walmart. As we celebrate Women's History Month this month, KBLA Talk 1580 would like to spotlight women leaders in our community who are creating positive change. If you or someone you know is making a difference in your community, please nominate them with a 50-word or less post on why you feel they should be included in the KBLA Women's Series, sponsored by Walmart. These women leaders will be featured on KBLA, interviewed on KBLA, and participate in a panel discussion hosted by Reva Martin in real time. Visit the KBLA app or log on to KBLA1580.com to nominate a woman in your community that is creating positive change. This has been a KBLA Talk 1580 community call to action.
Hello, this is Dr. Rosa Milligan, self-appointed mayor of South Central Los Angeles, calling authors and business owners. Get ready for Black Writers on Tour, plus Business and Tech Expo, Saturday, March 25th, 2023, 10 to 3 p.m. It's a face-to-face event at the Carson Community Center.
Authors, aspiring writers, learn how to write, publish, and sell your book. Business owners, let people know where you're at, and much more. 323-750-3592. It's a free event. You heard right, free. And there's something for everybody. Go to blackwritersontour.com and register today. 323-750-3592.
Literacy is everybody's business. Black Writers on Tour, Saturday, March 25th, 2023, 10 to 3 p.m. I'm looking to see you face to face. 323-750-3592 or visit blackwritersontour.com. Don't miss it.
Let's unpack a little bit more with Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues right now.
Let's unpack a bit more with Eileen Collins, the first woman to pilot the space shuttle, the first to command a space shuttle mission. Her book is out in paperback now. It's called Through the Glass Ceiling to the Stars, the story of the first American woman to command a space mission. You mentioned earlier, Eileen Collins, that this all started for you in the 4th grade. Take me back a few years ago and tell me what was happening then that made you decide that you would commit yourself to being a lady astronaut, and you actually followed through with it for the rest of your life.
Yeah, well, thanks for the question. I remember very well sitting in my science class in 4th grade, and we were talking about teachers earlier. I mean, teachers are very important. My teacher, Mrs. Whitmarsh, who I remember very well, had us reading an article from Junior Scholastic Magazine. Now, this article was on the Gemini program, which went in the late 1960s. It was a precursor to the Apollo missions to the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And these Gemini astronauts were pilots, they were test pilots, they were engineers, and I thought, these are the coolest guys I have ever seen. I want to be just like them. And, it was kind of funny that it didn't seem to bother me at the time that there weren't any women. I thought, I'm going to be a lady astronaut. That's what I'm going to do. But as I got older in high school, I started realizing, maybe I can't be an astronaut. What's going on? Why aren't there any women? But fortunately, in that time frame, NASA selected their first women. That was 1978. 6 women were selected to the space shuttle program, and that included Sally Ride. So they became my role models, and from there I actually started working on math, science, engineering, join the military, join the Air Force, become a pilot, become a test pilot. So I just kind of followed through those role models.
Yeah. I never met Sally Ride, but I'm honored to say that I've been a friend for many years of Mae Jemison. Was just delighted just to spend some time with her over the years.
Oh, I strapped in Mae Jemison on her launch back in 1992, and it was wonderful. Yep, I was one of her suit techs.
What a great story that I didn't know that you strapped her in. That's amazing. I love that phrase. One of her suit techs. Is that what they're called? Suit techs?
Yeah. We help strap them in before and we have to get out of there before they light the rockets. So I strapped her in, shut the hatch, and I got at least 10 miles away.
There you
before
go.
The launch went off.
No, as women in this program, you're our role models. But of course, being an African American woman, Mae Jemison has a unique place in certainly women's history and Black history. And so I've just been honored over the years to spend time with Mae. Let me ask you this. We had a conversation in our last hour with a Princeton professor who made a very powerful point. He has a new book out. We were talking about his belief that we in this country have lost our moral ambition on poverty. That's his phrase, that we've lost our moral ambition when it comes to poverty. Have we lost our ambition when it comes to space exploration? When I say we, I'm talking now about we the people, because everything seems nowadays to be in the realm of private space exploration. Your take on that?
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't think we have lost our ambition. I think some people are not following the program, and I commend you for your interest in space, but not every media personality is interested in space, and so it doesn't get the highlight that it should. But there is a renaissance going on right now in space exploration, both human and robotic. So human space. So you asked about the commercial side. This is the United States of America. These commercial companies are United States, and whether it's SpaceX or Boeing or Virgin Galactic, I could go. There's so many of them. They are part of the mission. They're working with NASA. These are, American astronauts along with our international partners that are launching people into space. We have more diverse crews, and I think it needs to get highlighted more because it really is a renaissance. And I am excited. I'm retired now, but I follow the news every day. I'm still an advisor for NASA, and it's once we start the end of next year, we're going to be sending 4 people to the moon to orbit the moon, and then just a year after that, we're going to land 2 astronauts on the moon. And there's a little bit of a space race going on right now with China, and I think it's going to be getting bigger. And we see Russia joining with China. This is kind of concerning for many people in our country. And the United States is joining with Canada, the Europeans, the Japanese. So we might end up with a little bit of a international space race here in the next couple of years.
That could be good, though. That could be good. If everybody's competing.
It makes you try harder.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. We're talking with NASA legend Eileen Collins, the first American woman to command a space mission. You're listening to her right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
What are you going to do? Make lots of songs. Tell me I'm the boy and girl.
I'm young, gifted, and black. And KBLA
KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation in scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Is your home's title still in your name? What would you do if you discovered you're the victim of a home title theft and that the one document that proves you own your home is no longer in your name? With Home Title Lock's free lookup service, you can verify your home is still safely in your name. Thieves can now discover the title to your home online. They simply forge your signature on a transfer document stating you sold your home to them. Then they take out loans on your home or sell it to some unsuspecting buyer. Homeowners insurance and common identity theft programs do not protect you. Home Title Lock does. Home Title Lock puts a virtual shield around your home's title to help keep criminals away. First things first, verify your home's title is still in your name with Home Title Lock's free lookup service. There's no obligation. It's absolutely free. Then register your address for 30 free days of protection. Visit HometitleLock.com/free. HometitleLock.com/free.
Mom's early Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard to take.
And when I left the oven on, we decided together that it was time to see a doctor and make a plan.
Early detection gave us more time to seek out information and support as a family.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. For more information, visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Conversations that matter. You're listening to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
Our remaining moments with Eileen Collins, the first American woman to command a space mission. Her book is out now in paperback. It's called Through the Glass Ceiling to the Stars, the story of the first American woman to command a space mission. As we celebrate Women's History Month in this month of March, I got about 3.5 minutes left. Eileen Collins, let me ask you the ways in which since the 70s, or since when you were back in the 4th grade, you've seen women be more embraced, women take more active role in the space program.
Yes. In fact, I would like to highlight someone from your area of the country, Jessica Watkins.
Mm-hmm.
She's currently an astronaut. She did a 6-month tour on the space station, just recently came back. She is a planetary scientist from the Jet Propulsion Lab, a black woman. And she is a great role model. She's very sharp. She did a super job on the mission. And, I look how, since the 1970s, how the concept of what is an astronaut has changed. And, being an astronaut is very difficult. I mean, it's not just, you have to be sharp, you have to be able to, learn quickly, but you have to have the endurance also. And you have to be able to be cooped up in a little spaceship with just a couple of people for a long, long period of time. So the selection process is very difficult. But you can see that the astronaut office is very diverse, and NASA picks people from all around the country from diverse backgrounds because it has really, the missions have been tremendously successful. So it kind of speaks for itself. Yep. So thanks for the question. Yes, things really have changed since the 70s, haven't they?
They have indeed. I've got about 90 seconds left. I know there can be a long answer to this question, but in 90 seconds, tell me, now that you're retired, Eileen Collins, what you most revel in all these years later about the experience you had being the first woman to command a space shuttle mission.
Oh, I would like to go back up again one of these days.
Yeah.
I figure, maybe, in a couple of decades, if they want an old lady, I'll go back up. But real quickly, let me just say, we are tiny little people living on the surface of a sphere, a ball, the Earth, with a tiny little atmosphere protecting us. That sphere is spinning. We're going around the sun. What has really changed me is I don't think about, like, the tiny little problems that bother me every day, like who cuts in front of me in traffic, or, it's really about the big picture in, human life on the planet. And it is so good. I hope more people have the chance to fly in space someday, have that same experience, and have that same mindset that really happens to you when you become an astronaut.
That's a great answer. I didn't know where you were going with that. That's an amazing answer to that question, so I'm glad I asked. Legendary NASA astronaut Eileen Collins, former flight instructor, test pilot, the first woman to pilot the space shuttle, the first to command a space shuttle mission, and I learned today she was a suit tech for Mae Jemison. So she's done it all. Her book is out now in paperback. Her memoir, it's called Through the Glass Ceiling to the Stars, the story of the first American woman to command a space mission. Eileen Collins, we salute you. Thank you for this conversation, and thank you for your service.
Thanks, Tavis.
Good to have you on. Hour 2 of Tavis Smiley. After news, traffic, and sports, you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest with the murder of African-American Tyree Nichols will no longer be in law enforcement in the state.